Why do 90% of people feel they can't overcome life's biggest challenges? Let's change that narrative together. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen B. Grant, Doctor of Psychology, but you can call me Dr. G. Here on the Warriors Hearts Rising podcast, we're all about resilience, grit, and the power of the human spirit. Every week we dive into incredible stories of triumph from people like you, those who faced their darkest of days and found the light. Whether it's a soldier returning home, someone fighting and breaking free from racial or workplace discrimination, or a family finding unity amid their personal chaos, we will try to cover it all. Life continuously throws us curveballs, but with the right mindset and a strong warrior's heart, nothing is insurmountable. We'll talk about real struggles and real victories, sharing tips and strategies to help you rise above your own challenges. So if you're ready to turn your scars into stars and your wounds into wisdom, please tune in and join our community of conquering warriors. Because no matter where you come from or what adversities you're facing, you have the strength to rise. So welcome to Warriors Hearts Rising. Sit back, get ready, and let's rise together.
Good evening. Thank you for once again tuning in to Welcome Heart Rising. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen B. Grant, or you can call me Dr. G. Tonight, we're going to delve into another topic that plays a big part in the reason why I chose psychology, and it's undiagnosed trauma. If you don't get anything else from my discussion tonight, understand this. Trauma is a silent epidemic affecting millions of people worldwide. It's an invisible wound that can shape a person's life in ways they might not even realize. Take it from someone who's dedicated their life and career objectives to helping others. I've seen the devastating impact of trauma when it goes unrecognized and untreated. It wasn't until I got into the world of psychology that I could see that a lot of the issues we're going to talk about tonight had actually affected me through my struggles with trauma. That's why this topic is genuinely close to my heart. I believe it's essential for all of us to understand it and to address it. So let's get started. The pervasiveness of trauma. Trauma can stem from a single event, such as a car accident, an assault, or ongoing experiences like childhood abuse or military combat. So we're going to take a hypothetical. Imagine Sarah. She's a successful businesswoman in her mid to late 30s, and she appears to have it all together. But behind closed doors, Sarah struggles with nightmares and flashbacks. And she has an intense fear of being in crowded places. Now, her trauma stems from a childhood experience that she's tried to bury, but the memories still haunt her, consistently haunt her. They've continuously haunted her throughout her entire life. This is Sarah's story. And this is just one example of how trauma can affect you from all walks of life. Sarah's story is many of your stories. In fact, one study found that 20.5% of inpatients in a mental health setting had undiagnosed PTSD. What this suggests is that the medical professionals may even overlook the signs and symptoms of PTSD within a population that's already seeking treatment for other health issues. Imagine that. You have people who are in the hospital or treatment facility and they're still being undiagnosed for a certain segment of traumas. I've seen trauma in my own life and other people from all different backgrounds, military and civilian. There are many veterans who cannot shake the memories of what they saw on the battlefield. But that's not my story. What's different for me is that I can't forget the words I was told before going to a hostile environment. These words from an officer, a lieutenant, continue to echo in my mind consistently. The mission changed. We now have to send people with the equipment. We don't know exactly what the mission entails. We don't know how long you'll be gone. And frankly, we don't know if you're ever coming back. See, my situation quickly went from prepping equipment, getting it ready to ship in support of others, to being told basically that I was literally going on a mission I might never return home from. That is my consistent, ongoing memory and trauma that I have to somehow get beyond. That was part of the reason why I decided to jump into psychology, so I can actually understand my own trauma before I can even begin to assist others with theirs. Let's also take stock of the fact that traumatic events are not solely tied to the military service. We can talk about, by all appearances, an average stay at home mom who was being triggered by the sound of her child's toy because the sound reminded her of her own abuse that she suffered as a child. Again, understand this. Trauma does not discriminate, and it is more common than we might think or realize, because it's part of the hidden impacts of the undiagnosed trauma. And as I said before, undiagnosed trauma is like an invisible wound. It may not be visible on the outside, but it's damn sure causing you immense pain and disruption on the inside. For many people, trauma can cause problems in various aspects of their lives. Let's talk about, for the sake of argument, we'll call him John. You see, in John's situation, his trauma led to problems in his sustaining relationships. He had trouble trusting his partners to the point that he would become irrationally angry just because they wanted to hold his hand in public, even the attempt to hold his hand in public. There was absolutely no PDA for John. Not only that, he struggled to focus on his job and work duties. He lashed out at his coworkers for no reason. He often became viewed as being unstable, when in actuality, it was his undiagnosed trauma seeping into every corner of his life, causing damage without him even realizing it. In fact, research shows that undiagnosed trauma can lead to issues like substance abuse, chronic health problems, and even suicidal ideations. Undiagnosed trauma can lead to suicidal thoughts. And for those that know me, they may think that John is me. I can tell you that John is not me. I can assure you, because I've always been able to focus on my job and work duties. So, John is not me. Now, the stability part, that might be a different story. But I know that some of you have known people who have been labeled as moody, easily angered, or quick to fly off the handle, when in fact, they've been struggling with what is called hypervigilance or post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. They may avoid social situations not because they are shy, but because crowds trigger memories of past trauma. The nightmares, flashbacks, the intrusive thoughts that come with PTSD, that can make it seem like they're dwelling in the past, when in reality, they're stuck in a cycle of reliving their trauma over and over and over again. It's truly heartbreaking to see people suffering in such a way without understanding the root cause of their pain. And because you don't understand what many people do, they will ridicule them. They will talk about them. They will joke about their actions because they don't know what they're suffering with, what they're going through. So stop it. But if you know someone, or even if it's yourself, like John, are experiencing similar issues, seek the help of a professional counselor or mental health therapist. I understand that many of you may find it too embarrassing to seek help, but trust me, it's far better than the alternative. Far better than the alternative. The far reaching consequences when we don't seek help. Some of the consequences of going undiagnosed can turn people to substance, have them self medicate to numb their pain, to try to relieve themselves of this unforeseen chronic physical health issues that they may have or they may not have. However, the self-medication and the substance abuse from their undiagnosed trauma will give them the idea that they are suffering more than they actually are physically, when all they have to do is seek professional help. The emotional toil can become so overwhelming with anxiety, depression, and again, the suicidal thoughts that may become more of a constant reality. It's such a heartbreaking cycle. It might even feel impossible for them to escape from. I've seen people, and many of you probably has as well. I've seen people lose their jobs, relationships, and their sense of self. I've seen people cut family ties, cut their usual and primary support system, all due to undiagnosed trauma. Oftentimes they feel as if they're living in a constant state of danger, always on edge and waiting for that proverbial other shoe to drop. When everything is going well, everything could be good, it could be right as rain, but they're still waiting on something to go wrong. They're waiting on that shoe to drop. Believe me, it's a terrible, horrific, and brutal way to exist for the military and the civilian population. And it is tragic because it is often preventable with the proper treatment and support. However, despite the prevalence of trauma, far too often it still goes undiagnosed. We need to do better. We need to do better to recognize these signs and get people the help that they need. But there's always a silver lining. There is hope. The first step towards healing is to recognize and become familiar with the signs of undiagnosed trauma. These symptoms include, as I mentioned earlier, such as flashbacks, avoidance of triggers, hypervigilance, and sudden anger or irritability. And if you or someone you know is struggling with these issues, know that seeking help from trauma-informed mental health professionals is crucial and could save lives. And with the proper and appropriate treatment, it is possible to heal from the trauma and reclaim a fulfilling life. Because studies have shown that therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, therapies can be highly effective in treating trauma. It's a journey. It's a path that takes time and compassion, but the transformation can be incredibly amazing. These type of therapies, CBT and EMDR, can help people process their trauma to the point of eventually being able to release the hold that trauma has had on their lives. Some from childhood, some from active duty military, some from a traumatic event that may have happened at their workplace, in their neighborhoods. But therapy works. I know many people don't believe in it, but it does help. I've known people who have gone from barely surviving to truly and honestly thriving. And if it's the most incredible, rewarding feeling in the world, seeing others overcome their adversities and knock down every obstacle that once stood in their way of living. They want to live and not just survive. Remember that healing is possible, but it requires a supportive community and your willingness to face the pain head on. Your pain, as well as assist and help those that you know face their pain. I am passionate and dedicated to helping others and spreading awareness and education, especially when it's regarding mental health. If we can normalize the conversation around trauma and mental health, we can break down those barriers and kick over those obstacles that keep people from seeking help. We can create a world where everyone has access to the care they need to not only heal, but also thrive. You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child. That village can also be used to help people seek help when they are in need. And many of you know people who are in need. Refer them to a professional, counselor, mental health therapist. And in conclusion, I just want to reiterate again that undiagnosed trauma is a silent epidemic, but it doesn't have to be. We can make a difference by increasing our awareness, educating ourselves, educating others, and encouraging those suffering in silence to seek help. There are too many organizations and centers out there for anyone to continue to suffer in silence. If you're struggling with trauma, please know that you are not alone. I said it before, and I will say it again each and every time I'm here until you get it. You are not alone. There is hope for healing. You can reach out to trusted healthcare providers, mental health professionals. You can call a helpline like SAMHSA. That's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration at 1-877-726-4727. Again, that's 1-877-726-4727. Or 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. And if you can't remember those numbers, if you didn't write them down, it's easy to just text the number 988. We all know 911. Let's get comfortable with the number 988 when we need to reach out for help. You do not have to suffer in silence any longer. You are strong, you are resilient, and you deserve to live a life free from the grip of trauma. So, once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Warriors Heart Rising. If you found this conversation and information helpful, please share it with someone you know. And let us break the silence and support each other on this path toward healing. Until next time, keep rising, warriors. God bless.